This morning, let's explore explanation, motivation, and acquiescence. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi. This is the Lama you are looking for. This morning we could chant and meditate and enjoy a lesson or two. But first, if you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as transformatively as Yoda learned to do on Dagobah under the guidance of Qui-Gon Jinn, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. This morning we could explore explanation, motivation, and acquiescence that you too could meditate like a Jedi. If at any point during this morning's live stream you have a question about meditation or philosophy or even chanting, there is no need to be shy. Simply type your question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. Unless, of course, you're watching a replay, then type your question in the comment area below the video. This morning I would like to teach the 12th passage of Heart Treasure of the Enlightened Ones, the View, Meditation, and Action, Good in the Beginning, Middle, and End. It was the final composition of the great Tibetan saint Dzogchen Rinpoche in the late 1800s. It has been translated by the Padmakata group and both adapted as well as amplified by yours truly. Though you explain, people could miss the point or simply not believe you. Though your motivation is truly altruistic, people might think it is not. These days, when the crooked see the straight as crooked, you might not be able to help anyone. Give up any hope of that. I got some wiggling going on here, which is kind of weird. Let's see what's going on. Maybe this mic could work better. Let's see here. Yes, that makes it work better. Okay. Not everybody who says they want our help really want our help. Sometimes people are just looking for a reason to do two weird things. Number one, not meditate or contemplate. But two, really feel sanctimonious about not meditating or contemplating. And so they'll say to themselves, well, I'm looking for a teacher. I just don't believe what this guy says. See, the thing is, if someone really wanted to find out, they would try, if someone received a teaching, they would sample a teaching. They would practice it once every 12 hours for 7 consecutive days, and then evaluate their results. If they got crap results, they'd go find another teaching or another teacher or both. If they got good results, they return to the teacher and receive more teachings. If someone won't do that, then they're just fooling themselves or trying to fool others. Some people have good hearts, but they're dull. And they may be exhausted, they may be drug-addled, they may be developmentally disadvantaged. There are many things. If you have a good teacher and you don't understand, and you respectfully say, I really want to understand this, but I feel like I'm hitting a wall. If a teacher is kind and wise, they will help you. If a teacher won't help you or can't help you, find a better teacher. Though your motivation is truly altruistic, people think it is not. This is not unique to Buddhism. Even Jesus talked about this. He did so through allegory. But he mentioned this. Dilgo Khyentse, one of the late tutors of the 14th Dalai Lama, said that to a man with jaundice, snow looks yellow. And so some people are just in a place where they cannot give the benefit of the doubt. In Christian literature, in the 1 Corinthians 13, we read that love trusts all things. We can reverse that and say fear suspects all things. And that bit of intellectual gymnastics could be justified by a passage in the first epistle of John, which reads, perfect love drives out fear, which infers an antithetical relationship between love and fear. Some people are just so angry or so frightened that they just have contempt for everyone all the time. It's very difficult to help someone like that. It's not our job to force people to change their opinions of us. We have to respect people's autonomy, even when that autonomy is self-destructive. It's perfectly okay to intervene if someone's foolishness is going to harm a third party. But if someone wants to harm themselves or think stinking absurd thoughts, do not force them to change. That's a form of mental rape. Respect others' intellectual autonomy. These days, when the crooked see the straight as crooked, you might not be able to help anyone give up any hope of that. So here's the great irony. We're told the second noble truth is right aspiration, or wishing love. The second noble truth is that indulging our primal drives to shove or reach or cling exacerbates stress. How do we reconcile those two? Number one, love is not a primal drive. It's a higher drive. Number two, we blend love with letting go, which means we experience the altruistic impulse, but we let go of our lower impulse to control people or control circumstances. Now you might say, but wait a second, the third, fourth, and fifth folds of the Eightfold Path are about kind communication, kind conduct, and a kind commerce. And we can do those things from a place of centered spontaneity. That's one of the reasons we meditate, because meditation cultivates that centered spontaneity upon which or through which our choices and utterances and deeds can flow. Now, it's very easy to look about us and see what feels like an infinite amount of suffering, and it's easy to get overwhelmed. And there's a wonderful artist who put together an exhibit of dominoes. The first domino was teeny tiny, perhaps the size of an almond. And he stacked these he balanced these dominoes on their narrow edges in a line. And each domino was a little bit further from the last domino and a little bit bigger. Incrementally further, incrementally bigger, until the last domino was about the size of a door, stable and heavy. And so to enact his performance art, the artist stood behind into the side of the little teeny almond-sized domino and knocked it into the next domino, starting the chain reaction that eventually caused the ginormous domino to topple. Now, clearly, if it was just two dominoes, the ginormous domino and the little teeny almond-sized domino, nothing would have happened. But this indirect, circuitous path of causality allowed the little teeny tiny almond-sized domino to indirectly influence the great big behemoth, King Kamehameha domino. And the answer, and that applies to our spiritual life. We can balance love and letting go. We can act from centered spontaneity and still participate in benefiting all of humanity, which is pretty cool. Before we begin this morning's chanting and contemplating and meditating, I'd like to spend about 15 seconds on housekeeping. If there are lessons you'd like to request, or if you simply wish to support the continued availability of these teachings, there is a Patreon link in the description area below the video. Let us begin by exercising both our loving motivation and our enthusiasm. May I liberate all beings by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings by relying on the students' example, instructions, and students. Together, let's chant the Heart of Wisdom Sutra. The enlightening being who notices the curse of the world, while moving in the deep peace of perfect understanding, shed light on the five aggregates and found them equally empty. After this realization, she overcame all pain. So there's nothing mystic here. Five aggregates is just a way of organizing our experience. Five is not a perfect number. In different discourses, different sermons, the Buddha used different numbers and different labels. His point was not, hey, this is metaphysics and we got to get the labels right. Not at all. His point was, if we notice and let go of the various facets of experience, we're able to free ourselves from the tyranny of our lower drives. For the lower drives tend to exacerbate the stress in our lives. Consequently, we're able to make peace with whatever happens to us, whether it's pleasurable or painful or interesting or boring or glorious or grotesque. But what do we mean by empty? This is an excellent question I'm going to illustrate right now with a quick edit. Please bear with me. So what I'm going to do is quickly paste something here. Hopefully it'll fit. Let's see how this works. Okay. All right. Whoops, wrong button, kids, wrong button. Let's try that again. Okay, let's make sure that the display is synchronized. It appears to be, which is always nice. So let's explain the simple idea of emptiness. If this is your first time tuning in, I love talking about the marriage of meditation and neuroscience. The most fundamental part of the central nervous system, universal or ubiquitous to all complex life forms on this planet, is the autonomic nervous system. And it's really cool. Every time we inhale, we automatically access the sympathetic nervous system that helps us, that supports the sensory acuity, that helps us to notice sensations, flavors, scents, sounds, sights, and the like, as well as emotions, intentions, thoughts, reason, and recollection, as well as imagination. When we perform this exercise viscerally, passively, vulnerably, and spontaneously, then the only label we need ever use is simply the pronoun this. That is why during each inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite, notice this. But what are we to do with all the stuff that we notice? During each exhalation, we inadvertently access our parasympathetic nervous system, which helps us to both physically relax as well as mentally release. This is remarkably easy. What we're doing is we are basically aligning our intention with evolution's metaphoric factory installed wiring. We're not going to fight our tendencies to notice as we inhale. We're not going to fight against our tendencies to let go and relax as we exhale. This is what some people call resting the mind in the non-graspable nature of awareness. So here's the cool thing. Whatever we notice, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, once we start exhaling, we begin to release it, and it could feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. Now, a simile, my friends, is only as beneficial as it is relatable. So, what is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast, empty void? And the answer is the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although is tantalizing to the eye, could be non-graspable to the touch. On a morning like I just described, you could lay out a blanket on the lawn Lay on your back, gaze at the sky, reach towards the sky, grasp as intensely as you can, pull those fists back, and not a single time will you open them up and find some blue stuff. Every child has this experience. You can reach for the blue sky that looks quite infinite, but cannot grasp anything. So this is not a great metaphysical truth to be believed in or understood. It's simply a simile of non-graspability. We do not have to believe that everything being a phenomenon is non-graspable. In fact, belief is counterproductive. But we can, if we are in harmony with our breathing and our autonomic nervous system, we will tend to notice things as we breathe in. And as we breathe out, it could feel like those exact same things were now as non-graspable as if they were a vast empty void. And now you understand emptiness, probably better than many other students out there. So the basic message of this page is when we not only notice but let go, we are free from the tyranny of pain. Pain is still there. We still have mindfulness. We still have the capacity to feel every human emotion, but we are less controlled by them. We're able to make peace with whatever befalls us, pleasurable or painful, glorious or grotesque. Let's continue with the chanting. Listen, Shari Buddha, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Form does not differ from emptiness, emptiness does not differ from form. As long as you breathe in, you'll notice things. As long as you breathe out, you will let go of things, voluntarily or involuntarily. The same is true with healing, appraisal, impulse, and awareness. Simply put, form is our body. Feeling is our experience of whether something is pleasurable or painful or neither. Appraisal is simply the degree or intensity of that pleasure or pain. Impulse is our knee-jerk reaction to pleasure or pain. Our primal response to pleasure is to cling to it. Our primal response to pain is to shove it away. And our final bit is awareness itself, our capacity to notice, whether actively or passively, whether vulnerably or defensively, whether viscerally or intellectually, whether deliberately or spontaneously. So even awareness itself can be noticed and released, which is kind of fun. Let's continue with the chanting. Listen, Jari Buddha, phenomena are marked with emptiness. They are neither produced nor destroyed, neither corrupted nor purified, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no appraisal, no impulse, no awareness. So this is not saying these things don't exist. This is not saying these things are imaginary or these things are the product of our belief system. It's not saying that at all. Contrary to the ravings of pseudo-spiritual self-help teachers, what we're saying is whatever we notice, once we begin exhaling and relaxing, it could feel non-graspable. So therefore there is no form that cannot be released. There is no feeling that cannot be released. There is no appraisal that cannot be released. There's no impulse that cannot be released. There's no awareness that cannot be released. And so that is a common theme we're going to repeat in many iterations for the remaining passages of this recitation. In the Beatles song, All You Need Is Love, there's a refrain where Paul sings, there's nothing you can think that cannot be thought. So in other words, whatever we notice, we can let go of. This is not something to believe. This is not something to understand. This is something that can be observed with every inhalation and every exhalation. Let's continue. No sensation, no flavor, no scent, no sound, no sight, no phenomena. No body, no tongue, no nose, no eyes, no ears, no mind. No feeling, no tasting, no smelling, no hearing, no seeing, no noticing. So they kind of play with this in the first Matrix movie when Neo goes to visit the Oracle. He hangs out with a little boy dressed like a novice monk. And the little boy with a delightful English accent says, "Do not try to bend the spoon. That is impossible. Only try to realize the truth. The truth? There is no spoon. Then you will see it's not the spoon that bends, but your mind." That's fun and that's trippy, but it's based on language that's highly metaphoric. So our version of that is simply, there are scents, and we are wired to notice them and let go of them. There is no scent that cannot be noticed. There is no scent that cannot be released. Let's continue. No interdependent origins and no extinction of them from confusion to old age and death. 1 minute, gotta click my back. That's the space heater. No stress, no exacerbation, no liberation, no path, no understanding, no attainment. So, we're not saying there is no path, we're saying there's no path that cannot be noticed, there's no path that cannot be released, there's no attainment that cannot be perceived, there's no attainment that cannot be released. Because there is no attainment, the Bodhisattva supported by the perfection of understanding find no obstacles for their minds. One of the great ironies of life is trying too hard. It's been said that one could master a martial arts system practicing it once an hour every day for 7 years. But if they practice for 2 hours, it might take 14 years. And if they practice for 3 hours, it might take 21 years. You can do too much. We have to learn to not only notice, but to let go. And that includes enlightenment as well. The Buddha did not just sit in meditation. He also stood, he also walked. When he was hungry, he ate. When he was tired, he rested. There is great wisdom in that. Having no obstacles, they overcome fear, liberating themselves forever from illusion and realizing perfect nirvana. So, we do not stop feeling fear. We simply free ourselves from the tyranny of fear. We are able to feel the full spectrum of human emotions without being their mindless puppet, without being a slave to dread or desire, clinging or competition. We can notice and release. That is the key to accessing nirvana in a week. All Buddhas of the past, present, and future, thanks to this perfect understanding, arrive at full right and universal enlightenment. Have you ever met someone who was just, they might have a shaved head and wear monk's robes, but they're so cranky, and they're miserable, and they're without joy. Joy essence is a synonym for enlightenment. The fourth enlightenment factor is joy. There is no enlightenment without joy. If your teacher is so cranky and so miserable that they are joyless, they really can't help you become a Buddha. Remind of something Jesus said. You Pharisees cross lands and sea to make one proselyte, and when you do, you make him twice as son of hell as yourself. If your teacher is miserable, cranky, and anxious, how can they help you to be free of those things, other than by serving as a cautionary tale? Let's continue. Therefore, one should know that perfect understanding is a great mantra, is the unequaled mantra, the destroyer of all suffering, the incorruptible truth. A mantra prajna paramita should therefore be proclaimed. Mantra can be translated as mind protection. And the ultimate mind protection is the wisdom that notices and lets go. But now the author of this text plays a game and uses a mantra, transforms the mantra of the perfection of wisdom into a simile. This is the mantra gate gate para samgate bodhiswaha. Gone completely and perfectly gone to enlightenment, may it be so. How do we go to enlightenment? By noticing and letting go. As promised, we come now to meditation and contemplation. Meditation is also known as resting the mind in the non-graspable nature of awareness. And it's very simple. As we mentioned previously, as we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite, notice this. And as we breathe out, we will silently and mentally recite, relaxing. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. We've already discussed this several minutes ago. Now, oh, wait a second. Sorry, quick editing. There we go. Let's make sure that the display is still synchronized. So, it is just as it's natural to breathe in and breathe out, it's also natural for our mind to go from a resting mode to an active mode. Our job is not to fight it. Our job is to notice it and dance with it. On a dance floor, in a ballroom setting, you can either dance with your partner or wrestle them. So to dance with our experience, when we notice we're in turmoil, and that's a natural thing, we bring the turmoil into these 4 exercises. And when we're doing these exercises, when we're practicing these exercises, we want to breathe generously. So the first exercise is, how could this feel stressful? Big fat no duh. It reminds us that stress is not an indictment. It's just part of how we evolved to experience the world. We then take our stress and allow it to fuel our compassion, simply by wishing. Now for all, soothe all stress. This the more we are feeling stress ourselves, the more we can convert our natural aversion to stress into a universal compassion for all beings. So where the first exercise was a rhetorical question, the second is an enthusiastic intention. The last two exercises are also rhetorical questions, which means we do not have to answer them. In fact, it works better if we don't answer them. We just ask in harmony with our breathing, how could this never last? How could this not be me? Some people squander lifetimes trying to understand how to answer this rhetorical question, but the irony is, it's not our job to answer it. It's simply a silly technique we play with to get us more and more comfortable with the idea of letting go. That's all it is. It's a contemplative device. It's not an irrational question designed to exhaust the brain. That sounds horrible. It's simply a tool to help us get more and more comfortable with letting go. How could this not be me? We recite it silently and mentally in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation, in harmony with our awareness and our relaxing. Perform each of this for the length of one breath, and then you can return to your primary meditation. You can do this when you're tired, you can do this when you're antsy, you can do this when you're angry, you can do this when you're sad, you can do this when you're frightened, you can do this when you're a horn dog. Whatever's going on can actually fuel the fires of your wisdom, of your insight. So this right here is a complete path. It contains contemplation and meditation, wisdom and compassion. This is a complete system on one page. Let's play with this joyfully and enthusiastically, making the most of what time we have this morning. When you feel bored in meditation, bring your boredom into these 4 exercises. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness flow spontaneous and uncontrived. May everyone be free from stress, may everyone be happy, may no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging free. Approximately 10.5 hours, we could explore thoughts of future longing, as well as chant and meditate some more. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy. And if you are